Hello, and welcome back to Daily Devotionals for my last daily devotional. My name's Matt, and I'm the Kids and Youth Worker from All Saints Church in Marlow. I want to start off by reading you something from Leviticus 25, verses 3 to 5. When you enter the land I am going to give you, the land itself must observe a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years sow your fields, and for 6 years prune your vineyards, and gather their crops. But in the 7th year the land is to have a Sabbath of rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. Do not sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the grapes on your unattended vines. The land is to have a year of rest. It's not just people who need to rest. In this passage from Leviticus, God ordains that even the land should be rested from the work of providing food for his people. Traditional farming still observes this principle of not wearing out the soil by planting it year after year with a system that's called crop rotation. How many examples of things needing rest or not being used continuously without a break can you think of in your day-to-day life? What happens to these things if you do not get their rest? The list is probably endless, but as well as people, animals, plants, seeds lie dormant in the winter, machines which get too hot if they're left on all the time, computers often needing to be switched off and restarted or they'll crash, cars that need to be serviced every year to maintain their moving parts. We often think of rest as an absence of activity, and this may sometimes lead us to think of it as a waste of time or time not used constructively. But just as lands will grow better quality crops if it is rested from time to time, so everything needs rest in order to be productive. How could rest make us more productive as people and as followers of God? What happens to our relationship with God if we do not take time to rest? What pressures can prevent us from resting? And what do you think of our attitude to rest as a society? Is it seen as a good thing or a bad thing? Hopefully, if you're enjoying these daily devotionals, you're enjoying it as a time of rest. Because for Christians, rest is an opportunity to catch up with God, to allow his life to allow his life-giving spirit to nourish and to refresh us. Just as his creation nourishes and refreshes the soil when it is left unfarmed, if we neglect this opportunity, we may find ourselves not only physically but spiritually exhausted and not to have a good crop. We live in a society where everyone is increasingly busy, and it's actually something that we can boast how busy we are. Rest is often seen as a luxury and not a necessity. And if we recognise this pressure, we will be more able to counter it. I myself am incredibly guilty of this. And I'm sure we all are. But it's important to remember that resting when we need to, is not lazy. Although some people may think it is. Anyone who deprives themselves of food for long periods would be seen as taking dangerous risks to their health. And yet we often deny ourselves rest, which is deemed as just as important, both by God and by medical professionals. Do you give yourself enough time to rest and be with God? If not, how could you change this? Can you learn from those who have answered yes to the question above? My challenge to you this week is to rest. In a time where we're stuck in isolation, and you see on your social media people learning new skills, learning new things. Everyone I know has learned how to make banana bread, and you feel called to have to do things. I may have inadvertently done that to you this week. You may have watched these videos this week and felt, I need to do more. You only need to do as much as you can. And it's important that when you cannot, you take rest. It's the first part of the Bible in Genesis where we learn that even God, when he finished his work, took rest. And he's written that into law, that we take a Sabbath. Sabbath doesn't necessarily need to be on a Sunday, but it needs to be your time when you rest and spend time with God. So I encourage you, with Sunday coming up tomorrow, maybe turn off from those distractions, whether it be a digital distraction, whether it be something on your mind. Find some time, some space to just spend with God. I know it's hard. I know we're stuck all in lockdown. You might have family with you. You might have all sorts of pressures. But I encourage you, it's so important to find time to rest in the presence of God, for you to be the best that you can be.